lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. So I let you guys know that I was going to be having a sexpert on the show. So I got some really amazing questions that we're going to be talking about today with Michelle Hope, who is a sexpert. What does a sexpert do? What does that mean?
Well, thank you for inviting me. First and foremost, let me just say that I chose sexpert because it's sexy and it sounds catchy. The root of the work I do is sexology. So that basically means I study human sexual behavior. And I really am primarily focused on intersectionality and how sexuality implicates people's daily lives, most specifically people of color.
Okay.
If you look at, or if you understand the idea of reproductive justice, or social justice even, right? Let's go bigger, social justice. And then like reproductive justice is really the notion that all people have access to the rights, the education, and care to have a child, not have a child, and choose how to raise that child, right? Without kind of any fear from government, the state, people in general.
Right.
Okay, that's the simplest way. And that's not a world we're living in, right? So when you look at currently, maternal mortality rates for women of color are 3 times higher than their white counterparts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, girl. And in New York, 12
And is
times.
that about access to healthcare?
It's about access to education, information, and proper healthcare.
Got it.
So it's very all the way around. You know, you can't turn the news on without seeing something that is rooted in sexuality. A sexpert sounds cool. It's catchy.
Right.
But really, I'm studying how sex and sexuality implicates our daily lives. And I'm trying to use that sexpert phrase. People start thinking blowjobs, pussy popping, which I can teach all that too. However, my passion is really looking at how our sex and sexuality and our understanding of those things implicate how free we are.
Right.
As a people, as people of color. This is all sexuality.
Right.
This is sexual health. This is gender norms. This is media. This is our cultural values. This is intimacy and sensuality and the idea that we don't talk about sex. We're not talking about nothing. And I just went on a tangent. I apologize.
So what made you want to get into this work?
My mother, I came from a pretty sexually open home in a very repressed state. So my mom is, right? Interesting. So my parents married young. My mother is a lesbian. I've known that since I was like 4. I think my parents...
But they were still married at that point?
I don't even think the ink dried on their marriage license.
Wow.
And my father was young. My mom was pretty young. But I grew up in Indiana. So she was closeted my whole entire...
Did your dad know?
Yeah. I mean, people in the family knew.
Right.
And probably everybody in the neighborhood knew, they knew because I was never invited to no slumber parties. I'm just kidding. No, the people knew. We just wouldn't talk about it. I was Catholic. All of this is like rooted in how you come to understand sex and sexuality and the shame associated with it.
So when did she finally come out?
To who?
Oh, to like the family and like.
No. It's a small family. It was my mom and my grandma. And then my dad's side of the family, I'm pretty sure they knew.
Did she start dating women at some point?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being very young and she had a lover and she would take care of me. And it was just like regular. It wasn't anything. It was never anything different. She's also white. So I think that's another reason I got into this. Because like, why do white people get to have all the sexual freedom?
Right.
Why are we all talking about in the pulpit? Somebody is fucking in that church. Like, come on. So I just think that we need to start having real conversations about it. I remember like finding one of my mom's Playboys in 1989. Let's see, I was like 5 or 6.
Who was on the cover?
LaToya Jackson. And I was
Miss
like,
Jackson, if you're nasty.
And I was like, you know what? I want to be in Playboy. And I at like 5, I was like, I want to be a sex symbol. And then, maybe it wasn't 5.
That's not funny, but it kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, but sex sells. We sell all kinds of products with sex. And let's not act like in the 80s and 90s we didn't do it. We probably did it more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It just wasn't on the internet yet.
Right. We didn't have the internet. You had commercials.
Right.
Where like it would be somebody sucking a straw real sexy and it'd be like a Coke commercial.
Right.
So I think that, I was like, oh man, I want to be a sex symbol. And then I hit like middle school and you had Jenny McCarthy. And then you had Loveline.
I remember Loveline with Dr. Drew, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And I was like, that's what I want to do.
So has your work impacted your own dating in terms of when men find out that you're a sexologist and you study sex?
Yes.
What is their first question?
Oh, man.
I bet they have the corniest pickup lines too because of that.
Oh, I've had to walk out of dates before. Like, you know what? At this point, sir, you're disrespecting me and hypersexualizing my job. So I'm leaving. Like, I literally walked out and I ate at a McDonald's.
What did he say?
He said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to perform right because I ain't never been with a sexologist. I was like, go fuck yourself, bro. Because
you're not going to perform because you're going to perform with yourself. Goodbye.
We have to start really think, what do we want to know about sex and sexuality? Where do we want to have our power? And how do we educate ourselves to those things? Right?
You know where I feel like we're still at as a whole and as a society? I still feel like women haven't owned sexuality to the point that men have. Meaning women are still hoes if they sleep with a certain amount of men. Men are still the man if they sleep with a certain amount of women. And I wonder when that's going to go away, when we could finally be equal in that way.
We have to teach our young people a better way than we were taught. Okay? So we were taught these very rigid gender norms. We were taught the good old boys way. Like, this is patriarchy.
Right.
Patriarchy is rooted in white supremacy, people. Like, come on. I always tell, I'm still in the classroom. I tell young people, I tell all people, yo, if your dick was a Bugatti, would you park it in every garage? Hell no.
I need some stable, like,
Would you pull up in every valet? No, you wouldn't. Your shit's gonna come back with scratches on it, dents, who knows?
The song, woke up in a new Bugatti.
Right, like, it amazes me, like, people will stick their dicks in all kinds of places. But if it was a car or a goddamn pair of sneakers, you wouldn't step in a puddle.
Right.
You wouldn't step in a mess. And I think that for women, it's the same thing. But I use the analogy of a goddamn vending machine. Will a vending machine take a crumpled ass dollar?
Nope.
Hell no. So maybe you shouldn't be taking all the crumpled ass dick coming your way.
That's the realest shit I ever heard.
Like, it's like we have to start reevaluating. I mean, and I could get into details about like how seminal fluid can actually change the DNA of a woman.
I've been saying this. Now listen, I'm not a sexologist, but I really have believed all my life that you take on a person's DNA inside of you and there's a piece of it there that remains forever. And if you don't want that, I believe in like the energy. So I think like once you have somebody inside of you, you're taking a piece of like their energy and their spirit. And I really am like, that could travel with you forever.
Well, I mean, now, if you want to talk about the emotional impact and the trauma that you might experience in a relationship, absolutely. Neuroscientists have most definitely proven that trauma can be passed down from generation to generation through DNA.
Right.
Now, I have actually read some scientific articles that talk about how having someone else's sperm can leave an imprint on your DNA, right? But that emotional trauma of some of the relationships we get in, that shit can fuck up your family line. And another thing I like to tell people, if you are pregnant with a girl, I think little boys are great, but this is super important if you are pregnant with a girl. You have to be very kind to yourself during your pregnancy because you are carrying the genetic coding of your grandchildren. Because as women, we are born with all of our eggs.
Right.
So if you are a woman who is pregnant with a woman, a little girl, you are developing
your grandchildren are already inside of you.
Yeah, you are genetically coding your grandchildren.
Wow.
And this is the shit I get off on. Like this, look, I'm getting goosebumps. Ew. Like I get super, like helping people of color understand.
I don't think we think that far ahead. I mean, just generally everybody.
Listen.
Like, I don't think we're thinking like, I think we think about it once the kid is here, then we're
That's
like, how
the
do
problem.
I rate? And it's like, that's not step
it's
one.
Too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. You should have been thinking like, who the fuck is your baby's daddy's baby daddy? Like Because what type of mental health issues are in the family already?
Right.
What type of traumas has that family undertaken? We already know. Again, neuroscience has proven that trauma can be passed through genetic coding. That's one thing. And two, please, people, I'm not judging you if you've done this. Stop having babies before 25 because your brain is not fully formed.
Thank you. I don't think you should be married either before 25.
No,
I don't think you should be married, and I don't think
either.
you should have a baby because you're right. Like your brain, you're not a fully functional human being yet.
I love human development. Let's talk about human development. Let's talk about your brain. Your brain is not fully formed until now. They're saying about 26. If you look on the news for like shootings, robberies, and like if you look at the ages of the people committing these crimes, the majority of them are gonna be under 26. Like go look at Chicago and be like, okay, people who committed shootings that were arrested in the last blah, 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 blah. And then look at their age. Most of them are under.
Your brain's not developed yet.
Because
you're doing dumb shit.
Yeah, because your frontal lobe, the space that helps you with judgment and reasoning, does not fully form until about 26. So please, that's probably why insurance companies give you a discount around 25.
Well, most you can't even rent a car in most states until you're like 25
because they are like, fuck this.
Your brain ain't right yet.
Yeah, you
I'm
are
not taking on
poor
the liability.
Judgment.
Right.
Poor judgment.
Save yourself,
please.
So we're going to get into some of the listener questions that I got. We got some
lighten
really
it
good
up.
ones. Okay.
Sorry, I took y'all down the.
These are all anonymous because people don't really want to talk about their sex life publicly. So this one says, my husband and I have always had a good sex life. We've both been busy at work and our schedules have been a little difficult lately. Over the last year, we've barely been having sex. We are both tired when we're at home. Usually we have dinner, maybe watch a little TV, and then bed. No sex, just bed. I fear we have fallen into a bad routine. It almost feels strange to kiss and be intimate nowadays. How do we get back to making sex a normal part of our relationship again?
Well, welcome to middle age. I just want to say that to start with. First of all, we have to reframe what romance looks like. It's roses and this and that. Marriage is not about romance. It's about commitment. It's about the idea that you are committing to this motherfucker come hell, high water, and bankruptcy. You're going to have times when the sex is not there. Mm-hmm. You're going to have times when you're not talking. And that's a totally normal part of marriage.
But how long is normal? So she's saying it sounds like for a good year now.
Girl, how many years are you going to be married? I mean, like, look at, like, so when I read this, I think, first of all, if you're married for 40 years mm-hmm. and you only come up on 5 years with bad sex, you're winning. Ugh. It sounds crazy.
Like that's a hard pill for me to swallow.
Hey.
Only because for me personally, I've had a lot of short-term relationships, meaning like a year and a half or less. And I remember a good friend of mine once said, he was talking about his parents and he said, you know, they've had their good years and bad years. I remember like they were going through some stuff for 5 years. And I remember thinking, 5 years to be going through some
marriage.
Stuff?
Bitch, that is a marriage.
That's a lot. So I'm like, 5 years.
That's a marriage.
But there has to come a point where somebody says like, yo, not let's get divorced, but we just can't do the same problem for 5 years in a row.
I mean,
we have to fix
you're
it.
absolutely
We have
right.
to do something about it.
I'm not disagreeing, but what I am hearing in this question is we're tired after work. Mm-hmm. Let some kids come into the equation.
Right.
When you choose to marry a person, you're choosing to merge two lives, which means two individual people that had their own list of responsibilities are now coming together to double that list and share those responsibilities. And then when you have kids, whatever responsibilities them little hood booger mother truckers have, you're adding that to your list of responsibilities as parents. So your plate gets full. But we have to reframe what intimacy is. Mm-hmm. We cannot look to sex to to be the only thing that intimacy is. Now, I want you to be fucked. I want you to have orgasms. I want you and your husband to have a great sex life. Totally. But I want you to consider, as you age, how important is sex? Because let's face it, girlfriend, you might hit that menopause wall at some point. I don't know how old this person is. I don't know. But there will come a time when your sex drive will be much slower than your partner's.
So how do you stay in an intimate relationship if you can't necessarily be sexual?
Yeah, I think that, and that's where I like to focus, because oftentimes if you work on the intimacy, the sex will get better. Right. So I recommend for people who are married and have been married for a long time to take time out of every day to have a conversation and some type of communication about things that matter to you and your partner. The shit that reminds you why you ended up marrying the other person, taking on all this responsibility, having kids. So that means the conversation cannot have kids in it. It cannot have bills in it. It cannot have daily chores in it. It needs to be about fantasy. It needs to be about life goals. It needs to be about, what does our life look like when we're in our 80s and our kids are gone and we have grandkids and we now are living our lives as an older yet still young, vivacious couple. Right. So you really have to reframe what it looks like. And that's why I started this with saying, like, and I tell people this all the time when they're getting married. I tell women all the time, girl, your pussy not going to stay as wet as it is right now.
Lube.
I mean, and that's going to be a thing. But what happens beyond the lube? What happens beyond menopause when you guys have been married and you're in your 70s? What does sex look like in your 70s?
Funny enough, I never have even imagined. What does it look like in your 70s?
It's compromised ability, because you might have had a hip replacement. You might have had both your knees done. You might have arthritis. Like, yeah, there's Viagra out there to keep a man hard, and there's lubes to keep pussy wet. But there's a lot of other shit that comes along with sex and aging that we don't fucking talk about. So I want this person to really think about, what is intimacy? Like, at some point, intimacy might become just sitting on the couch, cuddling. Intimacy might be going on your daily walks together because you are not able-bodied enough to fucking have him blow your back out. Like, he might really slip a disc.
He might literally blow your back out.
Right. And I think we are of a privileged age. We're young. We're able-bodied.
Right.
We work out. Both of us are relatively fit. Like, I still have arthritis, and there are mornings where I'm like, I can't fucking move. Or there are mornings where my body hurts so bad I'm in tears. Right. Or if somebody gets cancer, or if somebody, like, we don't think about this shit.
Intimacy, you're saying, can't be based on just something physical. Because otherwise,
you're fucked.
Eventually it's going to...
You're fucked. And I don't mean in a good way. But I always advise people in this situation, every day, take 5 minutes, either when you first wake up or right before bed. Talk about why you fell in love. Talk about, plan a vacation you don't intend on taking.
Right.
It, like, no limits, big blue sky. It could be to the Maldives before they go away, or, you know what I'm saying?
So it really sounds like intimacy is really about communication.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely. And also, for your situation, maybe I would suggest a sex date. So once a week, or calendar a sex.
Doesn't that take kind of the
go
flair out of it?
Well, not really, because...
Hey, we're scheduled for sex at 2:30 today. I'm just calling to confirm our appointment.
But it's not even that. Like, imagine if you have a really hellacious work week and, like, you look forward to Sunday night sex night.
Right.
Like, it's an opportunity. And remember, the brain is the most important part of sex. Mm-hmm. So it's an opportunity for you to maybe, like, on that day that you know is your sex day for you and your partner, or your date night, whatever you want to call it. Because I don't want this to sound like a chore.
Right.
I want it to sound like a vacation. We always look forward to the weekends. I want couples who've been married for a long time to look forward to their date night.
Right.
AKA sex night. You know what I'm saying? Because as we age and we accept more responsibility. We've accepted the responsibility of a marriage. We've accepted and that means I've accepted the responsibility of your fucking in-laws. I don't like them. Mm-hmm. And then we say, well, let's have kids. And then we're like, oh shit, let's start a business together. Like we accept all these responsibilities, but I think that we should also say, you know what? I want to really put forward the importance of my relationship. So I need to have a date night. I need to have this. I need to have that. And it shouldn't be a chore, but if you need to schedule it, schedule that shit.
Well, you know
Sex night.
I think I find interesting the fact that we sort of schedule everything and have like a time for everything and we plan everything and we talk about everything. But when it comes to sex, we do always sort of expect that part of it and the attraction and just the act of it to just be natural and just come. And it's this moment of fire and boom, boom, boom.
If you fucking with erectile dysfunction Bob over here, it's not going to be no spontaneous stuff. He's got to remember, ooh, I need to take my little blue pill or whatever. And to anybody who has erectile dysfunction, I'm not discrediting you. I'm just saying, like, we're romanticizing what sex is.
Right.
We're buying into the goddamn television shows and the Doritos commercials and those fucking Hardee's commercials with the bitch in the bikini right. eating a like that's not. She's gonna have gas.
I love eating burgers in my bikini. There's no other time I want to eat a burger.
But the burger had a jalapeno. It had jalapenos and barbecue sauce and bacon. She gonna have bubble guts.
You're gonna be bloated
and you're gonna be gassy. Right. Like and there's no butt sex that night because you gonna end up in a shitty situation. I'm just saying.
That's true. Okay. So the next question. I've never had an orgasm with my boyfriend. Jesus. It's my fault, really.
It's not.
It sounds like it is. I started faking it when we first got together because it's difficult for me to climax with a partner. I do better on my own. I didn't want to make him feel like it was his fault and that he wasn't doing enough, so I faked it. Should I tell him that I've been faking it? And how should I show him exactly how to make me come, which may require more than just him, i.e. toys?
Hello, honey. Y'all need to come to my coaching services. Let me tell him.
Do a lot of people fake it? Is that still,
yes,
it's a thing?
Totally.
Okay.
Again, toxic masculinity, the idea of gender norms. You don't want to, men have very fragile egos.
Sounds like she recognized that, which is why she faked it.
But you really are doing him a disservice and yourself a disservice because you're letting him believe that his motherfucking fuck game tricks from the last bitch are working on you. See, people need to know whether you're heteronormative, homosexual, no pussy or no booty hole is the same as the last pussy or booty hole you had.
You got to come up with some new tricks.
Come on now.
New tricks.
It's not even about new tricks. You have to communicate with your partner to find out what their tricks are.
Right.
That's what makes, like, girl, bye. If you and the clitoris is an important part of the body. It is the pleasure pusher, the pleasure provider for women in their genital region. And for a man not to understand that you got to make the man in the boat stand up. Make that clitoris hard. Mm-hmm. You're doing him a disservice because he's going to go and sleep with another woman after you if you break up. And she's going to be like, oh, God, he's horrible. And maybe she'll be bold enough to be like, you got to work on this. But I have ample friends who have been like, Michelle, girl, I dated this guy. He was terrible in bed. And I was like, did you tell him? She was like, no, bitch, I broke up with him. I said, then you did none of us in the world a service.
So the next person has
like,
to deal
come
with
on
it.
now. And every person has different sexual proclivities. Everybody's body is different. So you acknowledging that is not disrespectful to him. It's like, hey, babe, can we try this way? Or,
right.
Hey, babe, I really like a lot of attention on my clitoris. Could I use a vibrator? Like, I am polite. I am an avid toy user during intercourse, but I always ask permission.
Right.
Like in the bed, I'll be like, getting it, having sex. And then like after a while, I'm like, okay, this person is about to orgasm. So I need to get myself to a place where I'm going to orgasm. And I'll be like, during sex, it might be corny. I don't give a shit. Is it okay if I play with my toy right now, baby? And they be like, yeah, play with your toy. Because then my vagina is going to react different. And it's going to be like, hey. So I think that introducing those things should not be a problem.
So at this point, is she screwed? I just wanted to say
I feel like she screwed herself.
Well, no, but should she at this point be honest? Like, should she come out now and say, hey, I've sort of been lying for the last however long we've been together.
Don't hurt his ego, girl.
Like, what should she do now? Because she's put herself in a bad situation. But can she get out?
This is what we do. So here's the thing. For a woman like this, I would say, this is the language you should use with your partner. Hey, babe, I've been reading up on squirting, and I'd really like to experiment with squirting. How do you feel about that?
And every man is going to be like, yeah, let's do it.
Right. So then be like, well, the article I read said I needed to have clitoral stimulation during penetration. Do you think it would be okay if we added a vibrator? Boom. Bow, 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 bow.
Communicate right.
This is what I'm talking about. Communication is key.
I like that. That's a good way to do that.
Yes. So you should, it's communication. Like, hey, babe, I'd like to introduce some sex toys. Hey, babe, I'd like to blah, blah,
and then
blah, blah.
Once he starts doing that, regardless of why he thinks he's doing it, like, he'll probably get into the habit and continue. And then she could be pleased too.
Absolutely.
Look at that. Everybody wins.
Everybody. That's the idea with sex. Everybody wins.
You ready for the next question?
I'm always up.
Okay. All right. After many months researching and talking, my wife and I decided to share the experience of a three-way together. We are both highly sexual people and both open with each other about our needs, so we think this is a healthy progression in our marriage. The issue is that we don't know how to actually make it happen. We've tried various sites, including Tinder and other dating sites, but people are either flaky or just plain weird. Where/how does a normal loving couple find this sort of thing? Forgive me if this seems out of touch, but we got married very young and the whole dating game has changed tremendously since we got married.
Great question. I would recommend FetLife, and there's actually a new app for that.
There's an app for that. What is FetLife?
Oh, FetLife is a sex website that hooks up people who are into like BDSM or poly. It's kind of like a kinky sex forum website.
Like Tinder for like all other?
Oh, no. I'm about to tell you about the Tinder for all over. It's so funny because I'm looking on my phone because I download all this stuff to research it. People are like,
I think I've heard of that one because I remember I read an article. There was
called
a company
Field.
because they got sued.
Field.
I remember this.
They got
I saw an article.
I didn't know about that.
They're initially called Thrinder, and then they got sued by
so now
Tinder.
It's called Field.
So then they changed their name.
So Field, I have not actually signed on to because when I've tried to sign on, it requires a Facebook whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing that.
Right.
That's me. But originally, back in the day, I would have told you to go to Craigslist. Because the casual encounters before Craigslist removed those channels,
right?
That was a great place to find a third party. I think that's super hot that you guys want to explore some type of open sexuality. Be sure to identify what your boundaries are with each other prior to, and stick to those boundaries. Because I have been in a relationship where we had additions to our sex lives. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you something, honey. Waking up in the morning with another woman riding your man's penis can be very uncomfortable.
Oh, you're still here.
That's exactly how it was. And then I was like, you know what? I can't judge this woman. I invited you here.
Right.
So I'm going to take my black ass and sleep on the couch. But then everybody was like, wait a minute.
Where'd you go?
The queen bee has left the room and the show was over. And I was like, oh, no. I'm fine. I need sleep. Go on about your business.
So in experiences like that, did you find yourself getting jealous or like, how did you feel about it emotionally? Just because I think that would be the fear for a lot of people. Is
you go through a lot of emotions. And again, in that moment, I said, I need to remove myself. Because we had an amazing night. It was a wonderful experience. But then I didn't take into account, like, what happens when people wake up in the morning?
Right.
Because let's face it, you have a great night of sex. You wake up in the morning like, let's go round 2 or 4. Right. Whatever it is.
And pancakes.
Right. I woke up in the morning to see my partner enjoying an intimate experience with another woman. And I was like,
I didn't orchestrate this part.
I totally didn't. And the previous night I had been orchestrating.
Right.
And I was kind of the conductor of things because I'm a bit of a power person.
Right.
But that's who I am. And not everybody's like that. And so in that moment, I felt uncomfortable. But I recognized that I had invited this situation into my home.
Right.
And so for me, the best thing was to remove myself from the situation. Not to say I was unhappy or angry or mad or anything like that. It was just like, I'm tapping out. Like, this is clearly not my thing. Like, whatever.
Do you feel like this truly does enhance a relationship? So according to this guy, he's saying that Kim and his wife, they're both really open with each other, and he feels like this will like forward their relationship in some ways. Do you think that for a lot of people that it's a healthy progression in your relationship?
I don't know what a healthy progression is in everyone's relationship.
Right.
It's a case-by-case situation. For us, it didn't hinder us, but I don't think it was like, oh man, we're on a new level of intimacy. That wasn't the thing. It was just like, we did this. There were great parts of it, and then there were not so great parts of it.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, I feel like all of us are looking for that perfect Instagram post when it comes to our relationships. Like, you could slap on as many filters as you want.
We had a great threesome last night.
Right. But no relationship is perfect.
Right.
Like, it's an ebb and flow. There'll be high times. There'll be low times. It's the kind of like, and that's why, like, even in the first question, like, yo, sex is not always going to be great. And
you're not going to come every time.
Girl, bye.
Every single
time.
Like,
you're
just not.
You're not even getting sex every time you want it. Like, there will be a time when you're like, babe, just grab my boob while I use my vibrator on my pussy. Like, it is what it is.
Right.
But you have to be rooted in commitment and be like, okay, come hell or high water, this is the person I'm gonna be with. And it's not always sexy. But, you know, this whole podcast is about dating, relationships, and love. Like, dating is where, like, I'm trying to figure out who you are. Relationships are like, I'm trying to get a deeper understanding of how we might fit. And love is, come hell or high water, I'm accepting your shit.
Right.
Right? So there's levels to this shit, literally. And whether it's sexual or just emotional or mental, there are levels. What are you going to take on? What are you not going to take on?
Is there anybody you would recommend not ever do something like this? Because I think that sometimes when couples do this, it's for one of two reasons. One, they're just at a space where they want to explore. Or two, they're at a bad place and they think maybe this will fix it or change it or spice things up because things between them aren't going so well. So obviously you'd probably not recommend that those people.
I don't recommend anyone who is not consenting to this type of behavior engage in this type of behavior. Mm-hmm. But I also recommend for people who do choose to consent to this type of behavior, recognize there will be repercussions to those actions. I'm not saying the behavior is bad. I'm saying that you have to be a responsible adult, right? Like, how's the best way to compare this? Hey, drinking and driving. You can have a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, and drive home, and it'd be no problem.
Right.
You can have 4 glasses, 6 glasses of wine, and perhaps it's no problem. You made it home. You're drunk as shit, but you didn't get a DUI. You didn't hit a car.
Right.
It's the same with this shit. It's about, like, what are your boundaries? How are you protecting yourself and the other people involved in the situation? And what do you want the outcome to be? Like, I sometimes think that people look at the instant gratification versus what's the long-term ramifications of us making this decision. Hey, we could have a threesome and it could be great. And it could be like, woo-wee, that was fun, babe. And we do that once a year. Or you could have a threesome and be like, oh shit, babe, I need more of this. And then all of a sudden one person is like, that was fun while it lasted, but I don't need this every week.
Need this every
and then
weekend.
you're like, oh, but babe, I need it every week. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So
there's a lot of details to it. It sounds like people really
that
need
no one
to,
needs to really consider
get to the core of before they even do it.
How do you know this motherfucker you're inviting into the bedroom ain't got no STDs? What happens if somebody ends up pregnant? What happens if somebody ends up with herpes? Like, what happens if somebody ends up with HIV? I have no idea what kind of sex you're having. I have no idea. I'm not here to judge whether it's a one person, a two person, an orgy. I've seen it all.
Right.
But I recognize that there are like there's
people
levels.
Don't think about the consequences.
There's levels to this shit.
Think about the consequences.
And what are you trying to get into?
Okay. Actually, I'm going to ask this question because it kind of relates to what we were just talking about. Is it appropriate to ask for actual papers or written proof of STD testing results? I say yes.
I say no.
Why?
Because that shit can be faked. Unless you finna go to the clinic with me right now and we finna get tested and then you finna wait 90 days because you have to understand that there are certain STIs that have incubation periods.
Right.
So we can go to the clinic and get tested and then wait 90 days and then get tested again. And then you could beat it up raw or you could just use a fucking condom.
Right. Or both.
Yeah. I feel like both is probably the best way to go.
Yeah. So it is appropriate, but just know that could be
no. What's appropriate is condoms.
Those
just condoms.
Well, outside of that, regardless of whether you ask for the results
dental
or
dam.
not, that's always necessary.
Condoms, dental dam, finger cots. Protect yourself.
I feel slightly uneducated here, but what's a finger cot?
Oh, it's a little baby condom for your fingers, so you can finger bang people in their asshole or their vaginas without exposing your hangnails to their fluids.
I never knew this. See,
learn something every day.
I needed to have you on.
Yes.
Okay. How soon is too soon to sleep with someone?
Sooner than you've given consent. I mean, at the end of the day, there is no soon or not soon. It's about being, of mind enough to give consent. If you've had too much to drink, you cannot give consent.
Right.
Right. I don't give a shit if you meet somebody on Tinder at 12 noon and you are fucking them by 6 o'clock. As long as you haven't had an excessive amount of alcohol to where your judgment is impaired and you have given consent to have intercourse with them, fuck away.
I think it depends on what you're looking for.
I don't know, because I've met a lot of people who are like, we fucked the first night and we're now married 30 years.
I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think it decreases the chances of the relationship being focused on getting to know each other on an intimate level, not a sexual level, but on an intimate level if that happens so soon. Because then the focus becomes, I think, on the sex versus the relationship.
Perhaps, depending on your age. Because imagine if you're in your 50s and you're an individual who hasn't had sex in a long time, you go on a date, you have the right chemistry, and the person turns you on. It's the first date, but they turn you on, and you're like, hey, let's make love. But you ain't had sex in 18 months. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I think we're being very siloed in our youth.
Right, right.
And respectability politics of the black community. Let's be real. I didn't go to Jack and Jill, but I feel like this is some Jack and Jill bullshit.
So if you meet a guy right now, you meet him on Tinder, you go out, things are going good, and you think this is somebody I could see myself in a relationship with.
You're lying to yourself.
No, but you have sex with him, right? Instead of it being on, well, let me really try to get to know intimate details about this man, I feel like now your mind, me particularly, would be wondering like, well, he didn't text me back. I slept with him. Is he sleeping with somebody new? And like,
how about
all
you
these
just,
extra questions come about.
I feel like, this is very heteronormative, first of all. Let's just identify that. Because right now you're talking about gender norms. Mm-hmm. You're talking about women being looked at as non-virtuous.
I'm not,
because men are not thinking that.
They're not thinking what? Like they're not thinking.
They don't give a fuck. They're like, I just fucked this girl and it was great. Bye. That's it.
But
women are like, oh my God, is he gonna call me? How about we become women that are like, fuck this motherfucker?
No, but what I'm saying is like, does it what does it take away from you not to do that? And then you're like, if he doesn't call me, oh well, he doesn't call me, but I haven't given a piece of myself up. Like that's really how I feel sometimes. Wait a minute,
whoa. You haven't given shit. This mother trucker, if you're in a heteronormative relationship, because we have to remove, like we have to be very mindful to remove the idea of heteronormative and cisgenderedness. First of all, as women, we don't give them shit. They're the ones depositing into us. They have given to us. Furthermore, it is sperm that identifies the sex of a baby. Honey, I was born with this shit. You want to come get it, come get it. But see, that is how society has brainwashed women into believing that they are the problem. We are not the problem.
Women are not the problem.
And we are not unvirtuous if we choose to have intercourse. And what I'm hearing you say is, I just gave him this and now is he going to call me? Stop think. I want all women to stop thinking like that. I want it to be, my hope is that women are like, you know what? I chose to have sex with this person. It was great. I don't necessarily need them for anything. Yeah, I like them, but I have a lot to offer. So what are they bringing to my table? Because I think that we've been brainwashed to be like, oh my God, now he thinks I'm a slut.
No, I'm not saying that has to be the case. But what I am saying is, why not, if you meet a person and you like them, why not wait? What's the harm in waiting to explore that?
Oh, no, nothing.
So all I'm saying is, for me personally, I feel like I'm more open to things that I don't know if I want yet coming my way if I do that, right? Versus like waiting. So to me, in my mind, this is personal. Like I'm saying we've exchanged cells, we've exchanged DNA, and now I need to follow up on this. So I feel like if I don't hear from you or I really do feel like I've given you a piece of me and I've taken a piece of you. And
that's
so like
so romantic.
No, but I don't consider that necessarily like a casual exchange. Like it's not a handshake. Like we've exchanged.
I don't know. Again, first of all, right now I'm probably sounding very hypocritical.
It's intimate. It's so like to me like sex is, I don't know. I don't consider it a casual act. Like I don't feel, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying emotionally, the place that I feel like I get to when that happens is like, if I fuck you, we go together. Like basically, like there's more. I need more commitment. I've given and I've taken from you, and it's not casual, and I need to know that there's more.
Yeah, I think that right now what you're doing is you are mixing an emotional idea with a physical need, right? So here's the thing. Mm-hmm. As humans, there's such thing as skin hunger, which is like touch, mm-hmm. right? Orgasms, when you have them, they like release all these amazing chemicals in your brain, mm-hmm. oxytocin. It's like high. It's like smoking crack mm-hmm. or shooting heroin. Like your brain really goes crazy when you orgasm. Right. And I think that I'm not judging you mm-hmm. because I've been in relationships with people where, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're a sexologist, your sex life is great. Where like sex was not the main focus. And right. we dated for 4 or 5 months before we actually had intercourse. So I'm not discrediting anything you're saying. Mm-hmm. But I also think if we're going to attach emotion to sex, we have to reframe. Well, because what I'm hearing is you're saying that sex is intimacy. Mm-hmm. And I'm attaching emotion to sex because it's intimate.
Right.
We have to reframe what intimacy is.
It's not the only form of intimacy, but certainly.
But unfortunately, our society has identified sex as the most intimate. But I know there are mad people out there who have fucked a lot of other people that they didn't even know their last name. There was no intimacy there. So I just am saying this to say, mm-hmm. we cannot look at sex it's a physical thing. Like, because if we do that, if we identify sex as something that's supposed to be special and intimate, what are we saying to people who have experienced sexual assault?
Right.
Like,
right.
Somebody took some shit from me.
Right.
But does that mean I can never experience intimacy?
I 100% get what you're saying. And I do understand that, like, intimacy comes from different things for different people. Like, some people might be like, look, I travel the world alone, right, and to bring somebody on a trip with me is a really intimate experience, right, you know? And I get that. But one of the things that intimacy does come from for me is
for
sex.
you.
For me.
I think that's
for me.
You just have
sex.
to sit in that me space.
Right. Like, I get that it's not that way for everybody, nor am I saying it should be. I also just do understand, though, that there are a lot of emotions that come with it for me that aren't always productive to what I maybe want out of a relationship.
You know what's intimate for me?
What?
Disclosing my credit score or asking for help. Right? Like, I'm not like, I might have sex with somebody and not think it, or historically, now I'm lazy, but like historically I might have had sex with people and not thought anything of it. Like, what's your name again? Right? So we cannot put these values or try to continue to make people believe that sex is this super thing, because that's why people don't get tested. That's why people are not honest in their sex lives, because they don't want to feel shamed that I don't hold this
nor should it be.
Act.
Nor should anybody feel shamed for that. Like, because like I said, I get that intimacy is something different for everybody. Like, intimacy is not one single thing. And the thing that I think is important to understand, just like it is with every aspect of our lives, is like, where did that thought come from? You know? So I think, like, I do view sex as an intimate thing. Where does that come from? Does that come from something I actually believe? Does that come from my upbringing? Does that come from society? And like, where am I getting that message from? So I think that's the important part, is identify the thing and like figure out the source. And if it's still something that matters to you, or something that you hold dear and is important to you, well, like, great, rock on. But if it's just some like idea that you heard somewhere or has been handed down to you, well, like, explore why.
And why you buy into it.
Okay. This question. How many times a week should my partner and I be having sex if we're above 40? I mean, however many times you want.
Yes. Like, listen, above 40, you may or may not be premenopausal. You may or may not have the same lubrication. Like, you probably have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of stress. How about you talk to your partner, and you and your partner identify what the best number is. Additionally, I feel like the U.S. average is like 114 times a year. It's like somewhere between 125 and 150 times a year. Like, that's twice a week, maybe. Most people are not getting sex like that, though.
Right. Well, it's certainly not like this intimate, romantic, sometimes it's just like, hey.
And let's face it,
trying
as
to do
women,
this or not.
Right. Like, as women, we have there comes a lot of complications. It's a lot.
Like what?
A menstrual cycle is 28 days, and you have different discharge every phase of that menstrual cycle.
Do you think that a lot of men are still on the no period sex thing? Have they gotten over that
I don't know
yet?
who your partner is, but apparently he's not.
Have they gotten over this?
No, a lot of men are not over it.
Oh, get over that shit.
I wish.
Should you tell your partner how many people you've been with?
Not if you don't have to.
I think yes. Not as a requirement.
Oh,
not
God.
Not as
Have you been tested?
Yes.
Are you clean?
Yes.
Then fuck no, you ain't got to say shit.
No, but I think that to me is intimacy, actually.
That is your intimacy.
Yes, that's a big piece of intimacy for me, is if we can actually sit down and have just an honest and fun conversation about our past experiences.
Men are gonna lie, women are gonna lie. Just don't, how many people have you been with unprotected since you last got tested? When was your last test? I feel like you got to focus on what's important. Are you about to give me an STD? Like, what's happening here? That's all I care about. I don't need to know how many women you've had sex with. Because this is for me. I'm going to get, or men, I don't give a shit. Men, women, fucking goats. I'm going to get in my head like, did the goat fuck you better than I'm fucking you? Does the woman throw it back better than I'm throwing it back? Is that man sucking your dick better than me?
Well, they've been with people before you, so the number really doesn't matter. It's
have no interest.
If they've been with one person before you, you could have that thought.
I have no interest in knowing. And quite frankly, I don't really want to disclose.
I like to know.
I'm not telling you. Please. As long as my STD check is clean, we ain't got to talk about how many people.
I think it's a fun. Even know.
Who knows?
I think it's a fun conversation.
Hey, my answer is who knows.
I actually asked a guy once, and he showed me a spreadsheet.
Well, he's
like an actual spreadsheet in Excel.
He's a bit anal and over organized. I don't care. I don't want to know. I don't. I just want to know you're clean.
Right.
That's all I care about.
Which is very important. Get tested, use condoms. What are some natural lube options? Because we are trying to get pregnant.
I would recommend coconut oil.
Oh.
If you're not using condoms. If you're using condoms, you cannot use coconut oil. Furthermore, a Harvard professor was like, coconut oil is poison if you consume it. It really is not good for anything but like your skin, your pussy, your asshole, and your hair. You should not eat coconut oil. So if you're not using condoms, you could use like a coconut oil, almond oil, but you're trying to get pregnant. Honestly, it's really more about identifying when you're fertile, which is going to be between day 13 and day 16 of your full menstruation cycle, which is about 28 to 31 days. But I would recommend you start monitoring your menstrual cycle and start fucking when you are ovulating. Additionally, men's sperm is so important. So weird. Have him ice his nuts on a regular basis because heat is the killer of sperm. So he should not be wearing whitey tighties or any kind of boxer brief right now. He needs to be in actual briefs because the scrotum will drop and shrink up because the seminal fluid and semen have to be a very specific temperature to stay active. So like men are like, oh man, I'm so hot. My nuts is swinging. That's because your nuts are like, yo, your body's too hot. I need to cool off.
So is that something they should do right before sex?
It's not about right before. You can do like a regimen of icing your scrotum, which who wants to ice their scrotum? But that can increase your sperm count.
Oh, good to know. I'm not trying yet, but just good information to have.
One day.
Why should women pee after sex?
Oh my goodness. Why should everybody pee after sex?
Including men.
I mean, whether you're using a condom or not, which I always encourage condom use, but oftentimes the urethra is a space that can kind of take in bacteria. So by urinating after intercourse, it kind of flushes out the urethra. Now for men, their urethra also carries sperm. Right? So you'll be able to kind of flush everything out. For women, actual sperm is kind of a sterile thing. So peeing just kind of washes, strangely enough, urine as it is like a waste. It's a waste coming out of your body, but it's still sterile. It kind of just cleans out the whole area. I'm not saying that urine cleans your vagina. I'm saying that it's a great way to kind of like...
Don't use it to wash.
Like it's a great way to just kind of let everything go. Also, if you're a squirter, you're basically... What's happening is you're orgasming hard enough to allow a release of the urethral sponge.
So squirting is really just pee. Can we just I mean, the chemical... I need an expert to say it definitively. It's just pee.
It's definitely,
it's clear.
Science has told us it is a release of fluid from the urethral sponge. There's not necessarily anything. It's like the G spot is not actually like one spot in the vagina, an inch and a half up that you can like stimulate and get people to squirt. It's kind of like the whole area of the vulva. It's like the perineum and the clitoris and it's everything, right? But oftentimes I hear men be like, oh, she kept saying, oh, she feels like she's going to come. She feels like or no, she feels like she's going to pee. She feels like she's going to pee. So she stops me from intercourse. And it's like, so that means she's about to orgasm harder than she's ever orgasmed because it's the urethral sponge, which in studies they found, even if a woman empties her bladder prior to any kind of intercourse, whether penetration or otherwise, right around orgasm, a super hard orgasm, the urethral sponge will release fluid. So that's that squirting.
So I too can squirt because I know how to pee. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Hello. If we would all just get out of our own heads, we'd all be squirting everywhere.
What are 3 pieces of advice you have for people to improve their sex life, whether that be with themselves or a partner or just generally speaking?
Communication, communication, and communication. Right? So like, let's say you're single and you're like dating apps or you're like hookup apps or whatever. You need to communicate with yourself your boundaries and you need to set those. And then you need to be able to communicate those to your partner.
Right.
With a safe word, with, I always like to go on a sex date prior to sex where you talk about the things that you're into, that you're not into with your partner. It's totally verbal. It's not physical. You have to communicate to your partner that you're in a relationship with, like, hey, sex was good last night, or hey, you kind of made me feel after. So people always worry about foreplay. I always talk about afterplay. Afterplay is after sex or after care. How do you check back in with your partner? Hey, did you like that? Did you not like that? A lot of us don't recognize that most people have some type of sexual trauma, and that's not always tied to something physical, right? It could be you were Catholic, like I was, and like you feel like, hey, if I fuck you in the ass, I'm a dirty girl, right? Whatever the case may be, right? So you have to do aftercare. Like, did you enjoy that? Do you like this? Whatever.
What did it bring up for you?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think just actively having intercourse, communicate, like sex should never be silent. Do you like this? Do you not like this? Do you want faster? Pull my hair, choke me, spank me. I like this. Whoa, I didn't like that. Like you have to communicate. So communication is a big part because I think people forget that the brain is the most important part of sexual intercourse.
I like that. We forget that. Yeah. So where can people reach you to get some advice, get some services, learn about themselves, all that? So you can find me on all social media platforms at MHSEXPERT. That's at MHSEXpert. I also have a website, www.mhsexpert. Or if you're like, fuck all these MHSEXpert shit, just Google Michelle Hope plus sExpert and you'll probably be able to locate me. I have a new podcast coming out called sExpert Positions. I hope you guys tune into that. I hope you will come on and be a guest. Yes, I would love to.
And then, just send me info@mhsexpert.com if you want to email me. I do trainings. I do couples coaching. I do it all. Just ask.
I love it. I really do feel like I got some education today.
Good.
That I needed. And I hope you all did too. So please reach out to me at Tennesha Wood on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and let me know what you think of today's show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.